I got like 10,000 followers. I had bought like some Instagram course, right? And it was like just learning. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? But got like 10,000 followers. And then someone reached out and was like, I'll pay you $20 if you post something for me.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you'll do what now?
You know, influencer marketing.
Right?
Okay.
Right. But this is the first money I've ever made online. But it was like $20 and they paid me, and I posted the post. I was like, I am hooked. Okay. Right? It was like, that was the thing. And so I was like, whatever will get me the most amount of followers so that I can sell the most amount of distribution. My name is Josh Forti, and you are watching the Entrepreneur Unleashed podcast.
Hello, hello, hello. I am so happy that you're here. Once again, my name is Edward Collins. I'm your host for Entrepreneur Unleashed, where we sit down and bring into the studio entrepreneurs who have achieved milestones of success, which most aspire to. And not only that, we're going to break down the step-by-steps that they got there. Now, when it comes to getting to your destination of success, you know that I'm a huge advocate for the concept and the process of reverse engineering. Learning vicariously through others is the fastest shortcut in your journey. Yeah. So let's get started. Josh, thank you so much for being here.
Dude, thank you. This place is awesome. I appreciate you having me out. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be a blast. Now, I know you flew out from Denver.
For Denver, yep.
You just arrived this morning, if I remember correctly.
Last night, last night. Yeah, 11 p.m. or something like that.
Well, almost this morning.
Almost this morning. It felt like this morning, that's for sure. It was bed this morning. Yeah, that's for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad you're here. What I'd love to do is, some members of the audience may not know who you are and what you're doing. So I'd like to give a bit of a snapshot of who you are right now, what you're doing right now, and then we'll get into a variety of story here.
Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Josh Forti, and I am a Christian. I am a husband. I am a father. We just had a little 9-month-old. She's so cute, so cute. And my background is like social media is where I got started, and so I've had that kind of experience of growing and managing millions of followers online. Didn't make any money, but then I learned money and how to sell stuff and how that worked. And so what we do now is we have a sales training company specifically helping entrepreneurs, and we teach them how to sell stuff for lots of money. I mean, in a nutshell, right? And our vision and our goal is to create the most complete system for entrepreneurs that sell services and their skills and stuff to be able to opt out of whatever life that they want to opt out of, the system, if you will, and break free from financial scarcity. Because, dude, I was trapped there for most of my life. So we've helped sell tens of millions of dollars of stuff online. I've been very, very blessed, not because I'm smart. I'm very, very dumb. You will learn this. But I've been blessed to surround myself with some pretty awesome, amazing people, learn from the best. And that's so in a nutshell, I think that's where we're at.
Well, I know that you and I have had an opportunity to sit down multiple times, and we've gotten to know each other pretty well. One of the things I find so remarkable about your story is that you are willing to hit a brick wall 19 million times. Yeah. And you're going to get, you don't even go around it. You just go right through it, which is awesome. I'm kind of curious about some of those brick walls, though. Because I know that entrepreneurs throughout their journey tend to hit potholes and roadblocks. And you've had your fair share. I'm kind of curious, what actually got you into the whole realm of entrepreneurism in the first place? Yeah,
so I know there's a wide variety of people listening. So I'm sure some people can relate. I grew up where every single decision was made due to lack of money.
Yes.
Right?
I can definitely relate
to that. You get it, right? I'm the only one, right? You're out there and you're like, all right, do we have the money to get the car? Do we have the money to take this trip? Do we have the money to go out to eat as a family, right? And love my parents, love my family to death, right? I had a great life growing up, but I did not like that, right? And I think we as entrepreneurs, we have this deep desire for freedom at a core level, right? It's just I just wanted to be free, man. I would look up and I'm like, money and fame, right? That's freedom, right? If I had money, if I had fame. And so, I've always had, I think, that drive for entrepreneurship. I think a lot of us do. But what got me into it originally was I'm like, okay, I don't want to have a boss. I don't want to have anybody be able to tell me what to do. I don't want to have to not be able to do something because I can't afford it, right? And I remember I'm like 11, right? Having, I don't know about an existential crisis, but a big, looking around and being like, everyone's a slave, dude. Everyone's trapped. They're just tied to the system. They wake up. And so for me, it was I would rather die trying to get out of that than play in it, right?
Right.
And so that's that was the kind of the driving, motivating factor there. And I've never had a real job. I mean, kind of, sort of. My last job, I think I made like 25,000 a year.
Okay.
Waited tables at Olive Garden for one of them. But I got into entrepreneurship in the social media game and Instagram. Instagram boom, Instagram boom. 2 years of failing, right?
Okay.
But I think anyone if you've had a level of success as an entrepreneur, you basically fail until you find your thing, right?
Yeah.
And so that was my thing. That's what got me into it. And Instagram was this world of like, oh my gosh, you know what I'm saying? Like I got my first 20,000 followers, and I was like,
wow,
I was Taylor Swift level famous at that point, right?
Right.
Like I was at the top of the world. So that's what got me into it, is just that desire to be free, and found out the hard way that money and fame does not buy freedom.
No,
but
definitely doesn't.
But that's how we got into it. Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, like what was the focus of that Instagram presence at that time? Like what were you doing on Instagram?
So at first it was literally like we just random, like any content.
Random stuff.
Yeah, like anything, like we would do different pages. So I think my first page was a fitness page, and it's funny because I hate the gym, right? Like I absolutely hate it.
Unfortunately, I do too.
Yeah.
I need to start loving the gym.
You need a trainer. Here's the hack, okay? I always joke, I'm like, I've done some pretty hard things in my life, okay? The second hardest thing I've ever had to do is get up on time, okay? Mastered that. And I'm like, and then 10,000 feet lower, way so much infinitely harder is going to the gym, right?
Yeah.
You find a personal trainer and you tell him, I'm gonna pay you so much money and you get to take it whether I show up or not, and like you're gonna force me to be in the gym every single day. And it worked. Okay. So that's how I got into it. But anyway, so so it was like random pages, and when it clicked for me was I got like 10,000 followers. I had bought like some Instagram course, right? And was like just learning. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? But got like 10,000 followers, and then someone reached out and was like, I'll pay you $20 if you post something for me.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, you'll do what now?
Influencer marketing.
Right?
Okay.
Right. But this is the first money I've ever made online, because I'd try like drop shipping courses and or like drop shipping like digital cameras and and back then it was way different. Yeah. I made no money, right? But it was like $20 and they paid me, and I post I was like, I am hooked. Okay. Right? It was like that was the thing. And so I was like, whatever will get me the most amount of followers so that I can sell the most amount of distribution. Yep.
Interesting.
So it was, fitness accounts, it was funny pages, it was, like just crazy wow videos, people doing, tricks and stuff like that.
Wow. And
then it got a little bit more into like motivation and luxury lifestyle, and we went a little crazy, on some of them, like money, right? Okay. Like flashy, just got, my face wasn't on it, so who cared, right? And that was where kind of there, and that blew up. I mean, like 7 million followers we grew and managed.
Oh my
God. We had one page, we had 1.1 million, I think, and Ronda Rousey, Usher, and actually Kobe Bryant actually followed it. Yeah,
wow.
Like crazy, right? Yeah. And there I was, balling out with whopping like $3,000-4,000 a month take home.
See, that's the thing a lot of people don't understand,
yeah.
Right? There is this disconnect with understanding what your social presence can do relative to the revenue generation capability, right? Yeah. And a lot of people see the Instagram lifestyle, and most of that's fake.
Well, and that capability, I think, is a really, really important word there, right? The actual, because some audiences just, you can't,
exactly.
Right? You just can't. And, I use entrepreneurship as a way to fuel my business. Fuel my purpose, right? And fuel my mission in life. That's why I relate with Russell Brunson so much, right? It's like, this is our mission. And I'm deep faith, right? And I believe in Christ. And that life of fame, or that life of living off of likes, didn't align with it. And so it's interesting how that shifts when you start to grow up and you start to, have those shifts.
The vanity metrics don't mean as much when you really understand the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Okay. When you looked at that journey, so that 7 million follower count, that was across multiple channels.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't all, we were growing those for clients and all stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But what happened? Cause I know from my understanding that came to an abrupt end. What happened there?
It was abrupt, but usually when you hear the word abrupt, you think bad. There was a falling out, right?
I don't think it was bad.
Yeah. So I had a business partner that, we were doing it together, and we decided to go different paths we wanted to go different paths with the business. Okay. And I have no bad blood whatsoever. But I was like, hey, I think we as entrepreneurs, or maybe some of us, or at least I do, I don't know, maybe you can relate, is like when you have that call inside of you, you have this like thing that you're like, I can't explain it, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, I know I'm supposed to listen to this, and you have no idea what it is. And so for me, it was like, hey, there's got to be something more to this, and I can't live I can't quite live my life just on social media everywhere, right? That's causing issues in other areas. And so we decided to just go different ways, right?
What do you mean? Other issues in other areas? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I'll fast forward, a couple years from where we were, and my wife and I were dating at the time, right? Okay. And I'm like, everywhere we would go, I'd have a camera in my face, right? Yeah. And every single day, nonstop, you'd wake up and you're creating a content or posting content or talking with VAs that are doing, at one point we were producing, I think it was like 100 and something pieces of content a day.
Oh my goodness.
Like a day, right?
Oh my goodness.
And so it's like you wake up, you work, you wake up in the middle of the night, right? Yeah. And it's like, it just becomes so, like you either live it or you don't,
completely
right?
Consumed
completely, right? And so I think one of the most important things, and this is jumping ahead in the story, but I think it's really relevant here, is we as entrepreneurs tend to get into entrepreneurship for freedom or for some purpose and reason, and then we forget, right? Or we don't align. We just find the thing that worked and we don't figure out how to align that with what we actually wanted in the first place.
Right.
And I thought I wanted a $100 million company. That's what I thought I wanted, right? I thought that was the goal. I thought that was the end all be all. And then my brother died in a helicopter crash unexpectedly, and life shatters, and you're like, maybe there is more to this, right? And so that was, the shift there really started with that concept of how do I reverse engineer. So I liked when you were like reversing. I'm like, yeah, right? It's the ultimate life hack, guys. Like I've spent $450,000 of my money on coaches and mentors. And I'm a broke farm kid that is very dumb. I was homeschooled. I barely graduated high school. I dropped out of college after half of a semester, right? But if we can reverse engineer, what is the life, not like lifestyle of like Lamborghinis and like, that's fun, I guess, but like
everyone has their own thing,
right? 100%. Right?
So I could totally respect those who go after those material things.
Yep.
But what you're talking about, freedom, is beyond material.
Yeah, and I think freedom, purpose, like what's the mission in life? Like what's the ultimate goal? What's the life that you want to live? Not that is an easy life per se. I think a life of, I think a life. You should have challenges. You should have responsibility. You should have people counting on you, right? Like you should have like big tasks that when you look at it, you're like, how am I going to solve this, right? Like that's fun, right? That's how you grow. But you have to thrive in that environment, right? And you have to be intentional with designing that. And I grew up, and I found so many entrepreneurs can relate with this, is like we grow up in this world where we're told that struggle is necessary, right? Where you grow up that it's like, you can't have what you want or you don't get life on your terms or whatever, right? And it's like, no, you can be very intentional. You just can't remove hard, right? Yes. You can't remove responsibility, right? But you can choose it and you can design it and you can be intentional with that. And so that's why the split happened. Right. And is we had two different visions of what that looked like. And I was like, I'm tired of being broke, quite frankly. Okay. Right. And yeah.
So what was the pivot then for you? What did you go into?
I discovered Russell Brunson.
Okay. Yeah. That was the turning point.
I read .com secrets, right? Yep. My favorite one's Expert Secrets, right?
Well, like, yeah, by far.
That is
.com is the foundation. You need that to understand some of the language, but Expert Secrets definitely. You're productizing your knowledge.
Yes.
And you're taking what your capabilities are and you're making it possible for others to learn it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And that was like, I clicked on a link and it's like him in this like dark room typing on this, and it's like, I'm going to show you the secrets. This is definitely a scam. I'm definitely going down the matrix, right? That's definitely what's happening. But that opened up my mind into this reality that like you can actually monetize an audience.
Yes.
Right? That you can actually sell stuff. You can build a business around this, like an actual business, like with systems and like marketing, and like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And so I had started to go down that rabbit hole. I remember when I first did it, Russell had just joined Snapchat.
Oh, yes.
And so I was like, send to Russell Snapchat. And he responded. It was crazy. This is way back in the day, right? I was like, can I hire you to build me a funnel? And he's like, well, I'm like $1 million, but you should just read my books. And I'm like, I did, right? And he's just like, just keep doing that. So that's when I learned kind of marketing and sales, and I fell in love with that world. Okay. I fell in love with that community. I fell in love with the idea that you can take these God-given talents that you have and this knowledge that you have, and that the internet and the digital landscape of things has given us the opportunity to create a world where we can better humanity, right? Like genuinely, seriously, with that. And so when people are like, when are you ever going to, when are you going to ever go out in the real world? I'm like, never. I like my fake reality bubble. Not fake, but you know what I mean? I like this bubble, right? And it's growing and it's huge. And so I think, you found your people, right?
100%.
And you're in that world too. You see it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's what I fell in love with. And I think as entrepreneurs, when we find those, it's like, that's the magic.
So when you jumped into Russell's world and you started to really fall in love with this concept of productizing knowledge, like what was your first steps? Like, what did you do?
Oh man, I did what every entrepreneur did, and I had shiny object syndrome and tried everything.
This. Yeah,
like, dude, we could do it all.
I've been there.
I could have a book funnel, and I could have upsells, and I can have email sequence, and I have this funnel and this service and mastermind, and that it was pretty bad.
Okay.
But where it started was I took the concept and the skills that I had with Instagram.
Okay.
And I was like, how do I sell this, right?
Okay.
How do I don't know exactly what that looked like. It started with a course, because we were really good at Instagram. It wasn't like there was no buying fake followers or we could blow up an account. Like clockwork. We could have accounts go 10,000 followers a month, and some of them we were doing 10,000 a day, right?
Wow.
If you got that, hit the algorithm right. And so it started there, but there was this distinct moment, my entrepreneur people out there, where you get so mad at all the gurus that are making way more than you, right? And you're like, they can't be that much smarter, right? But I was sitting at an event, Russell's event actually, this is many years ago, and second row, and this lady walks out on stage. Now keep in mind, at this point, I am in the height of this is like right around the time I've kind of we've split from my business partner at this point.
Right, okay.
But I'm still need clients. I am I am full out grind mode, cannot give, I'm talking about people, right? Like, it's like, you cannot give anymore, right? Like, you're doing everything you can. And this lady walks out and she's like, life is amazing. I make all this money. I make work 2 hours a day, right? And I'm like, honestly, just screw you. Just screw you, lady, right? And it's funny because we're actually pretty good friends now, right? But in my anger and frustration and just this deep, how she said something that, really changed the course of my life when it came to thinking about money and business. And she goes, the big mistake that entrepreneurs make is they think that money follows effort. And I was like,
oh yeah.
They think it. Well, okay, so then what? Is that not true then, right?
It is not true.
And not at all, right?
Yeah.
And she said, what you need to understand is that money actually follows value.
Yes.
And I had no idea what that meant, right? You hear these awe-inspiring things. We're like, yeah, that's such a good clip. But you're like, I have no clue. But I got up and I ended up leaving about a day early because I was like, I've got to figure this out, right? I've got to figure out how to stop working so hard and making so little, right? Because, I grew up, as I'm sure, sounds like you did too.
Oh, yeah.
Time for money. This equals this, more this equals more this, right? And it's like Warren Buffett, right? Most people work all day that they never have any time to make any money.
Yes.
It's like, what am I doing wrong, right?
Exactly.
So I left that, and that was kind of my moment, if you will, where I was like, okay, I've got to go figure this out. And figuring out how to take my social media skills, because I went from kind of Instagram to a broader Instagram, Facebook, social media. We're doing Facebook groups kind of at this point. How do I take that and how do I sell it for way more? How do I get better clients? How do I thought more was the answer. More clients. I thought hustling harder, right? I thought it was a paradigm shift, right? Yeah. And so that was kind of the moment for me. And we can go into that story if you want to go down that route. But yeah.
And when you made that dynamic switch go off in your head, because I say this to my community all the time: all money follows value creation.
Yeah,
all
100%.
And if you want to make $1 million, all you have to do is figure out how to solve $1 million problem, and it comes your way, right? So when this switch went off in your head, and you're like, okay, I need to then focus on how I can create the most amount of value, and not necessarily have to serve 100 million clients, right? You could do it with just a handful, and make really good money.
Really good money.
So that insight, that shift, this is still you now in a solo environment. You're still trying to build this on your own.
And I had not figured it out yet at this point. I just knew that I had to figure it out.
And granted, you're connected to some great human beings because you're part of a mastermind environment. You're getting connected with other humans that are all in that same, I still call it a hustle mindset, but not necessarily the hustle grind, right? So because a lot of people have started to figure out that you can do a lot less crazy effort stuff and get some awesome outcome. So when you're making that shift, like, what's going on in your life at that time that made it possible for you, one, to mentally absorb it? Because I know a lot of entrepreneurs, even hearing what we're saying right now, are not going to believe us.
Yeah.
They're going to sit back and they're going to say, no, that's not the way it works.
That's not the way it works. Well, go ahead.
But how did you get beyond that? Like how? Because again, most won't get beyond that quote unquote truth for them. But the truth that is real is you don't need that crazy effort to get crazy outcome.
Yeah. So I have my light bulb, or my change my life forever moment of about, I don't know, maybe 6 months later. Okay. But context to that is, if you would have told me that that's how it worked, I would not have believed you. Right? I joke, I'm like, if you would have told me what it was like to have a daughter, before having a kid, it is fundamentally, you cannot explain it, right? And then she's born and you're like, oh my gosh, right? Like Jordan Peterson, when he talks about like, we have capability for like great good and great evil. I'm like, if someone were to hurt this daughter, I would literally rip their life apart, right? Yes. Like instinctually. And so it's such a paradigm shift that I don't know. Like, I think when you talk about mentors and you talk about like getting around people, it's like you almost have to borrow theirs, right? And I got not lucky, but I was very fortunate that a client of mine, it was actually a client that taught me this, right? Okay. And so what had happened is I'm trying to figure this out, right? I'm trying to raise my prices, right? Raise your prices, do something. And so at the time, I was broke and I could not join masterminds, actually. So Funnel Hacking Live was about, there's 5,000 people there, right? But like, it's not like a close knit. So I actually started a podcast, right? Okay. Like this one. And I'm like, it's online.
That's also an awesome way to get around awesome humans.
The number one networking tool in the world. It's like hands down. And so my thought process was, hey, I don't have the money to go join masterminds, but I bet you that if I interviewed successful people, I bet you they'd like maybe share some knowledge, they'd say yes. And that was kind of the whole process, thought process around it. And I was doing an interview one time with a guy by the name of Brad. You actually know the Brad. That Brad. Yep. Okay. And we get done, and keep in mind, at the time, my services were like the highest price thing that I was selling was $5,000. Like that was the high, like that, and that was so much money to me, right? Yeah. And it was like 90 days worth of work for me, and it was we're doing like a Facebook group launch, and like it's bad, right? Yeah. But like in my head, I'm like, hey, people are giving me $5,000. I'm making them roughly 15. They're good, right? And so Brad, we get off, or they're done with the interview, and he's like, hey, that was awesome. Like I want your help with social media. Tell me more about that. And so we chatted for a little bit, and he goes, well, can you send me over a proposal of like what it would look like? And I am freaking out. I'm like, me? Like this guy's worth like tens of millions of dollars in real estate, like super successful, like by far the wealthiest guy that I had ever asked to work with me. And so if you've ever built funnels before, you think they're great until someone at that level asks you to work with you, and then you're like, I would die if they saw these funnels. That would be so embarrassing, right? Yeah. So I went and I put together a Google Doc. I literally pulled this out, and I took the service that I was selling for $5,000, and I put it on, like I was like, okay, if I were to go and work with this dude, and keep in mind, I had absolutely no expectation of him saying yes. I was like, definitely he's not going to say yes with it. But I'm like, if he were to say yes, then I would need to charge enough money to where I could basically cancel all my other clients and just focus on making sure I get him a result, right? Exactly. That's my thought process was basically I'm becoming his employee, not actually, but like I'm like I can't mess this one up. This is my shot, if you will, right? Exactly. And so I put together this like Google Doc, 2 pages. That was it, 2 pages, right? And I was like expecting 3, 4, 5 follow-up calls and all this. And I sent it over to him, and the price point I wrote down was $30,000. Okay. And that was like more money than I had made in a whole year at my last job, right? And so this was like, in my head, there was not a scenario where he says yes to this because it was so much money. Exactly. And a couple days later, he's like, hey, sounds good, we're in. Let's have a quick phone call, a couple questions. And then later that week, he paid me $30,000. Wow. And I'm like, yep. You ever have those moments where you're like, I do not know what just happened, right? But I need to do more of that, right? Yes. And so for me, this was this light bulb moment because I did not understand why someone would pay, in this case, 6 times more money than I was selling something for that at 5, same right? Thing, it didn't make any sense to me at all. Mm-hmm. But it was this world opened up where I was like, wait a second, $30,000 to this guy is nothing, right? And so
but the outcome was,
and that was the aha, right? Because when we went and I applied like I can't explain enough how much it was like, it was our same exact process. It was the exact same, like everything. We used the same funnel templates. We used the same strategy. I just was the one that did it. I didn't like hire a VA. Like I did it. But I did about the same amount of work, maybe even a little less, honestly. And we made $400,000 for him.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the beauty of scale, right? So if you're dealing with higher clientele and you're putting your mechanism into that higher clientele, the leverage component is huge, right? And that's why the same thing results in a higher output.
Yes.
Because it's just a higher ecosystem.
Right. So the better quality client, the better quality result. And the thing that happened that was completely, like, I did not see this coming after that was, once again, we go back to this concept of more. I need more clients. I need more clients. I need more clients. Now, keep in mind, I worked the same amount of time and I made 6 times more money and got him like a 15 times better result. Right. But then, like, after that launch was over and we got him the result, I got a message from this girl who ended up becoming a client, and she goes, "Hey, I was just in an Uber where I'm at this event. I'm just in an Uber with your client, and he speaks very highly of you. We should talk." And we sit down, and sure enough, like 2 weeks later, here's 30 grand. And I'm like, okay, hold on.
Pinch me.
Right? It's like, wait, okay. And I'm like, okay, if I want more money, if I want more clients, maybe the secret here, maybe the trick here is, maybe what I learned on stage, that money doesn't follow effort, it follows value, maybe is that if I get better clients, maybe if I focus on figuring out how to do bigger deals, right? Maybe if I understand some principles of some things, maybe that's what's going to get me to where I want to go. And that was it. That opened up a new reality for me, and it hasn't stopped, dude. Like, I mean, I did the same thing with someone else. It was like I had 30,000 and they wanted to do something I didn't have time. So I just raised it to 100, and it was an email. They emailed back and they were like, "Sounds good, send us the invoice." And I'm like, all right, now we're at 100 grand. And so it kept happening to this point where I think we as entrepreneurs, like, life can change so fast, like so fast.
Yes.
If we create the space to allow it to, right? And before I had that moment, like I cannot emphasize, I mean, I grew up in hustle mode, 5 a.m. out milking goats and taking care of the cows and chickens every single day, morning and evening, and just work. And I love it. I didn't love that, but I love work, right? Yeah. But there was not space in my mind to even entertain that there was a different reality. And that presentation opened it up. And I mean, my wife doesn't, I mean, she has a little side gig with yoga, and I always joke, I'm like, "Babe, you made a car payment, yay!" Right? Like, she doesn't have to work, right? She's retired. Yeah. Like, we live at a very nice area, and like, money is not an issue on a daily basis, right? And I don't have FU money, right? But
you'll get there,
right? Yeah,
you'll get there. But you're on track.
But I have FU skills,
yes,
right? And that's what I learned from mentors. That's what I learned from coaches. That's what I learned from this. And so that was really the moment for me where I'm like, listen. Find the person. For me, it was Brad, right? And he and I become very, very dear friends. He's paid me over $350,000 now. I've helped him make multiple million. And if you can find, like, you need one.
Yeah.
And when people say that, they're like, "Oh, it's one." I'm like, no, you need one, because then your life, like, then the reality opens. Then it's possible. And so that was kind of the moment.
And I talk about that a lot too, because so many of us are restricted by our own limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And until you can break through that with a possibility, now it's like, whoa, now it's off to the races, right? Because when I was growing up, like, my family had to work really hard just to get up to the poverty line. Like, we didn't come from money at all. I didn't know anything about it. Like, in fact, the stuff I did know about it was wrong. But once I got to a point where I wasn't making the money, but I saw other people close up that were, I'm like, well, wait a minute. That person is not necessarily smarter than I am, not necessarily interested in working harder than I am.
Yeah.
And they're able to do this. That means it is a possibility.
Yeah.
Now all I need to do is reverse engineer those steps.
Yeah.
Because anything that is possible can be replicated.
Yes.
So when you look at your journey at that point, you're finally now aware that you have level 10 skills. You're starting to apply it to level 10 opportunities. Like, what was the transition that really kicked it off now? Because you had the understanding that you could do it.
Yeah.
You have now proof that you could do it, not just understanding, proof.
Wild.
So what happened next? Like, did you launch this as a full going concern, or, like, tell me about it?
Yeah. So around this time, my wife and I, like, decided to actually get serious, and I'm like, I should probably grow up and propose and all that stuff, right? And I'm a huge advocate for marriage. It's amazing. Marriage is incredible, and get married, have kids. Like as entrepreneurs, money is fun, success is fun. But so we ended up getting married, and like I said, I'm deeply religious in the sense of I believe in Jesus, right? I don't subscribe to religion, I subscribe to Jesus, and I used that opportunity of finally, for the first time in my life, I mean, I hired a coach, a mindset coach. I thought I was hiring a business coach, and it was like identity and really understanding, how to process myself and who I was. And so over the next couple of years, I think that when we go back to this concept of designing the life that you will thrive in, or designing the life that will, allow you to live the life that you want to live, I knew that at that point, because my brother had passed at this point, and I knew that at that point I didn't know what the next big things were. Okay. And so I spent probably 2 years it was funny. I had a podcast, and I sold stuff for lots of money, and no one knew what I sold. It was great. They'd be like, people would be like, how do you make money? Like, what do you sell? And I'm like, well, I make you more money than you pay me. That's what I sell, right? And that was this like kind of this shift. And I used that time in life to actually fix my life. Okay. And not that I come from anything broken or have a tragic, terrible past per se, but it's like, oh, okay, wow, I hurt some people. Okay, oh, I should probably figure out what it means to be married, right? Yeah, not that my wife and I, those are totally separate things. But like just how to be a powerful man, what it meant to follow Christ, what it meant to be a father, what it meant to have purpose. And I was searching for purpose, and I was searching for mission, and I was searching for what that next thing was. And I think that as entrepreneurs, we tend to get so caught up in we look at this person on the stage, we look at you, right? Or we look at a Russell, or we look at an Elon, or whoever our idol is, right? And we go, that's what I want. Or like, if I only had that. And I don't know where this comes from. I was very blessed to understand that once I got there, it wasn't going to mean anything. And so I never craved that, right? Like I would see it and be frustrated that I wasn't making more money or whatever, but like I didn't want that. And so I took the time to actually figure out what that looked like. And it wasn't until honestly, relatively recently, within the last 12, 14 months or so, that like, I was like, oh, I found my thing, right? And that was what was next. But wife, and then learning how to operate a team, because I'd never done that before. And then learning networking and how to do that effectively and those types of things. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with defining the terms by which they're going to live their lives. Yeah. Right. So if you aspire to X, what does that really mean? Are you really aspiring to X, or are you truly aspiring to all the stuff that leads to X? Yeah. Right. Because the destination is not the thing that leads to fulfillment. It's the journey. Yeah. And Tony Robbins.
I was going to say,
Robbins essentially goes deep on that concept, and that's where I first heard it verbalized from Tony. But it's absolutely true. Yeah. Like I've hit a variety of different milestones of success that most people would agree, well, that's definitely a milestone.
That's right. That's the thing.
And I could tell you, don't get me wrong, in that moment, there's a feeling of joy and happiness. Right? But that moment is just a moment. Yep. It does not last long. And the concept of happiness and joy, those are emotions. Yeah. Emotions are fleeting. Fulfillment is a much different concept. Yeah. And when you're willing to marry the journey, not the destination, it definitely changes your life. Right?
And can I add or touch on that right there? When I shifted, so one of the things that I did that changed the way I thought forever was I started reading books. And I graduated high school and I bought a pickup truck and I stood on the back of the pickup truck and I publicly declared to the world that I would never read another book again, right? I was like, I am done with school. Yeah. This sucks. Like, screw that. And then I read Ray Dalio's Principles.
Oh, Principles.
Yeah.
Awesome book. Awesome book.
This is the first time that I understood the difference between a principle and a tactic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I didn't even know the difference. Yeah. Right? I was like, I am super dumb. All right. There's people way smarter than me. I should learn from them. Right? Yeah. And that lens of studying structure and studying like fulfillment and just studying how the world works was one of the biggest shifts that I did in business specifically. Is I shifted my mentality to not how do I make money, but rather, I talked about that identity of this, rather, how do I serve my clients in ways that are so valuable they actually want me around, right? Because if I can be seen as an asset, I grew up with deep insecurity, like never feeling like I was enough, never feeling like I was worthy, not being in the cool kids club, right? Like to the point of like when I got into the Instagram game, my mood for the day directly correlated to how many likes I got on Instagram, right? Yeah. Like it was bad, but overcoming that, I went, okay, wait a second. If I want to if I want people to give me money and money follows or value, right? Then I need to become someone that is valuable, right? And I need to be seen as an asset to them. And so figuring out how to become an asset, if you will, figuring out those principles of how do I create value, figuring out those principles of what does that look like for me in my skill sets on things, right? That shift of going, okay, principle is something that is universally applied. Tactic is how I apply it in a different area, right? And so I go, okay, great. That shift, the world is your oyster, right? You can do anything now at that point. And so I think that was the big shift of figuring out how do I shift this so that no matter where I'm at in the journey, I make money, I lose money, and I've made money and I've been super dumb with money. And then, once again, get around smart people and learn that. When you do that, you can enjoy every single day.
When you look at where you are now, compared to the journey you've been on, I'm curious, like, where do you see your biggest areas of constraint today?
Up until about 90 days ago, it was team and the ability, like I didn't have an operator.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that's a game changer.
And so about 5 months ago, I hired an operator, and about 30, maybe 45 days after that, I went, oh my gosh, I did not know, like it was like the most life-changing. And so I think right now we're learning that, right? And we're in that phase of it.
Help the audience understand what you mean by operator, because a lot of people don't recognize that there's a difference between the innovator or the ideator, if you will, in the organization and the person who actually makes it happen. So help me understand your definition of an operator.
So the way that it was described to me, which was like, oh my gosh, it's amazing, is we as entrepreneurs, right? We're visionaries. We see the future and everything is like, oh my gosh. And you speak things into existence, and then the next day you wake up and there's new sets of ideas that you speak into existence, and none of it ever comes to fruition.
Yes.
And an operator is the person that goes, you're insane, I don't see any of that, but they bring those words to life.
Right.
And that's their job.
Figure out how to get it done.
Right. They take this thing that you can communicate that you're the face of and actually apply it and actually install it and make it happen. And what I did not understand, pay very close attention, okay? This will change your life, right? I make nothing from this. These people come like already smart, way smarter than you, right?
Especially in those tactics.
I thought that I was, because I'd hired people before, and training, headache, whatever. I hired Sarah, that's her name, and she's like 10 times smarter than me day one. Yeah. But the funny thing was, she was the worst. I tell her this, so I'm not insulting her. She knows. She's the worst person I've ever met when it comes to making money. She's so terrible at making money. It's hilarious. But she is so ridiculously good at what she does.
Right.
And that deep respect there. So an operator is the person in the business that actually runs the business. So you can focus on what you do best, right? And hiring that person, and she, not cheap, right? You're going to pay a premium, and it is worth every single penny. Yep. So I think that was definitely, time was definitely the biggest area of constraint, not having leverage in that.
Okay. What about today?
Yeah, right now. I think the biggest area of constraint is leveraging, taking the knowledge that is in my head and systemizing it at scale. Not packaging it and selling it, but removing myself from the process of actually the education and teaching, because I've shifted from services into coaching, right?
Yes.
And actually building the infrastructure for scale. Like that is a excruciating process, and that right now is what is taking most of my time. We're almost done, but that has been the biggest area that I'm like, I know once it's done, we're right.
Yeah.
And it's been intentionally focused. So I think that right now is the biggest area of constraint, is just my time being focused on building this thing before we go to the top. Is that answer your question?
When you look at then, like let's say you're able to get through that constraint. Let's say over the course of the next whatever time period it's going to be, you're going to work on getting through it. You're going to unbottleneck that bottleneck.
Yep.
What then does that lead to? Like, have you started to envision what the next steps are?
Yep. So we are. We're up against a deadline, so we're doing a big challenge.
Okay.
October 28th. Yeah, big 2024. Challenge. 2024. Yes, yeah. This will be up for a while. And so it's a race, not a race, but like that's going to be finished around the time of that launch.
Okay.
And then the next bottleneck will be, or the next constraint that we will figure out is distribution and lead flow.
Okay.
But at at scale, right? Like mass, because I understand algorithms and stuff for content on Instagram. It's very different for something like this, and so that will be the next challenge that we figure out, because promotion's always been tied to me, and how do I remove myself from that? So just getting me out of it. I'm the problem. I'm the bottleneck. Right? I'm the constraint. Getting me out of everything will be the next one. But yeah, that's where we're going next, and we have a vision. The real vision is to create the most complete system for entrepreneurs to be able to just take their skills and opt out of the system, whatever system that is for you, and be free from financial scarcity. Like, that is step one. I call it the freedom to think, right? The freedom to think, level one freedom. You no longer rely on money to make your decisions, right? That's the goal. And it's taken dude, Alex Hormozi talks about this. He's like, you grossly underestimate how much work it takes to do something and build something good, right? And that's where we're at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, throughout our conversation today, you used a word over and over again, and I'm curious what your definition of it is for you. You use the word purpose. So what's your purpose?
I know what my purpose is in my own head, and it sounds crazy, and I haven't figured out how to articulate it clearly to the masses. But my purpose here on earth, in a nutshell, is to bring glory and honor to God and do what it is that he has called me to do. Okay. That's my purpose, right? That is why I'm here. That is, like, if I get to the end of my life and I've gone and achieved that, like, brought more people to him, amazing. Specifically in business, and how that translates to there is, my purpose is to be the example that entrepreneurs can look up to as someone that they should aspire to become in all areas, not because I am like, you should not follow me for any reason, but because I live by biblical principles and by principles of truth. And right now, when I look around the world today, you have people looking up to Andrew Tate and being like, that's a morally good dude. And I'm like, listen, smart dude. I'm no hatred. I'm not throwing shade at his brilliance in marketing and business, but I'm like, that seems to be a problem, right? Or the other side of it is, we're looking up to people that say, masculinity is a problem, right? And it's like the other side, and it's like, where are the men? And not that, women play an incredibly, equally as important a role in society, but I'm a man, right? Where are the men that will step up and lead? And my purpose is to go and be an example for as many entrepreneurs as possible to step up and live that way. Okay. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
Now, you know that I'm a Stoic, right?
Yes.
So I don't believe in wasting energy at all. Like, if it's outside of my control, I try not to do really any energy toward that thing at all. But if it's in my control, I try to give as much energy as I possibly can, because I want to influence outcome.
Yes.
I'm curious, like, if you were to share an area that you believe is in the control of the entrepreneur, what is that, and how should someone employ their energy towards that outcome or that thing, whatever it is?
Are you specifically talking about in business and life? Like,
I'm going to let you choose. Where do you want to take that?
I believe that you are in complete control of your thoughts.
Okay.
And while you cannot control what thoughts come in, you can take, as it talks about in the Bible, take every thought captive, right? One of the things that I learned from my mindset coach, I paid her $100,000, and she's like, I've got guilt. I've got shame sometimes. She goes, cool. But, like, you get to choose what you do with those. So I want you to observe, not judge, right? Observe them. And when I shifted from this judgment to an observation, what it did is it allowed me to look at every single thought that I was experiencing, or every emotion I was experiencing, as a thing, objectively, and then decide whether or not that was useful for my life. And that was the starting point that allowed everything else on my external reality to start changing. Because when people would say, take responsibility for your life, and listen, I think my second or third podcast of all time was everything is your fault, right? Radical responsibility, right? Yes. Radical responsibility. But what does that mean, right? How do you take responsibility for your life? So I think in the entrepreneurs, where it starts for us as entrepreneurs is, I think it starts with controlling your thoughts, right? And really mastering the ability to not let your thoughts and emotions be the thing that dictate, what you do, but rather you dictating what you do, whether or not it's right or wrong. And so I think it starts there. And then I think that in the area of business specifically, or I think of I don't think these things are separate, right? It's business and it's your relationship and it's your health, and these things are 3 and 1. It's not the Trinity, but it's kind of that, you know, you have 1 and, you know, yeah. So it's, you can control your focus. And if you separate these things and go, I'm going to focus on the business, by default, you are saying, I'm going to focus on it. I'm not going to focus on this over here, right? I'm not going to focus on the relationship. But then if you go and you study focus, Deep Work, Deep Work, fantastic book, right? Just learn from smart people, guys. Yes. Right? Don't learn from me. I'm dumb. But if you can go and whenever you shift or whenever you move, it's like you lose the momentum of that focus.
Yes.
And so if you can have immense focus and take these areas of your life and line them up to where what's the other book? The One Thing, right?
Oh, yes.
What's the one thing that if I can control every thought and I can take every thought captive, I can point it towards that and go, that, right? That's it. That's the only goal, right? Mm-hmm. That's why my answer of, you know, my purpose is it's much bigger than just business, right? It's how do I become that person that people can aspire to look up to? Because that means I have a healthy marriage. Like I love my wife. I love her, right? I love my daughter, and I love Jesus, and I'm in church, and I attempt to be smart with my money, and I line all these things up. I think that is how you get the most amount of output per unit of input that you put in. Does that answer your question?
It does. Yeah. It does. If someone were interested in finding out more about you and what you're doing and how you're doing it, where would they do that?
JoshForti.com, my first name, my last name. That's going to be the best place. Okay. And sorry, Russell, it's not a funnel, but it's like, it's just a sheet. It's just like one page, but it has our ebook there. It's got our workshop, and we kind of have an ecosystem on the back end. I genuinely believe I'm like value first, and also I have no idea what your problems are. I don't know if I can help you or not. So we try to be very front facing of value and like being like, you tell us, and then there's a path, right? And so just joshforti.com has all the details there, or Instagram. I'm pretty active in the DMs. And if you want more of my personal thoughts on life and business, Facebook is a good place to do that.
Awesome.
We have some fun.
If there's one nugget of wisdom that you would want to absolutely 100% make sure that you share with the audience today, what would that be?
Dude, I'm religious, so I'm going to take a turn on that. There's a verse in Ecclesiastes, Solomon, wisest, most knowledgeable man to ever live, the most powerful, most wealthy to ever live. And he wrote at the end of his life, he said, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of man. And so I think that if you don't know who your God is, wherever it is that you find that, you should probably start there and figure out what you subscribe to and believe, and then go serve that, because everything else doesn't really matter.
I love it.
Yeah.
Josh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was really fun. Appreciate it.
It was very genuine, and I know you, so everything you just shared is like 100% spot on.
I appreciate it.
Now there you have it. You've just witnessed the master, if you will, of making more money in your business. Share the deep insights of what has brought him to where he is today. I know you've loved it, and if you're interested in finding out even more about this amazing character, you're not going to want to miss jumping into the Uplevel community so you can get access to what we're about to jump into, which is our members-only podcast.
You should join. You should join it.
100%. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you. Once again, Edward Collins here with Entrepreneur Unleashed. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. Bye for now. Josh, that was awesome.
Thanks.